You're watching All to Play For, brought to you by Joe and Coral.
Hello and welcome to All to Play For, a brand new podcast brought to you by Joe and Coral. I'm Tom Davis and I'm joined with a legend of the game. He's one of my favourite players of all time. He's an absolute gentleman. I'm talking about England, Chelsea, Liverpool, Lille, Tampa Bay and of course West Ham icon, Mr. Joe Cole. My guy.
Yes, big man. How are you? Great to see you.
Good to see you remotely. Lockdown. We can't be in a studio together. So we're doing this through modern technology.
Mate, it's hard work, innit? I mean, listen, there's a lot of people out there suffering, so we'll suffer a little bit of this dodgy Wi-Fi until we meet again, and we'll have a lovely studio. I'll make the best cup of tea in East London, that's for sure, and we'll have it right off, big man.
Your tea making skills are legendary. They run from Canning Town all the way out to Southend. People talk about Joe Cole's tea. Did you have that when you first started playing? Because obviously the times have changed, the game's changed now. When you were first playing as a youth player, were you making teas for the players and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it was so different. Like, by the end of your career, you have a chef travelling with you on the coach, like proper meals, like, and everything. But at the start, I remember one of my first games at West Ham, I was travelling with a team and we was away at Anfield. I can't remember how old I was. I might have been even 15 or 16 as like a bit of experience. And my job, 15 minutes towards the end, was to slip off to the nearest chip shop and get the order in fish and chips, like 20 cod and chips for the whole team.
Wow.
Like, come straight on. The lads had the beers on the back of the coach, cracking on, playing cards and having the fish and chips. And then towards the end, the lads are in their recovery pants, having their smoothies, stretching out, waiting for the next game. So my career saw all of it, from Razor Ruddock to like some of the most professional, proper athletes with not an ounce of fat on them. And, it's the way the game is at the moment.
Isn't it? That's a fascinating thing, though. That's one of the things that, when me and you would sit and chat, like when we were at Soccer Aid together. And one of the things I loved, though, Joe, is that your career did transcend. You're of that generation. And also, I guess, from playing from West Ham to then when you were, at Chelsea and Liverpool, it did go from, that's a mad thing to think you went through those ages of, when you were West Ham, it would have been Bish, Moncur and all those guys, Ruddock, do you know what I mean? That sort of, to then go in and all of a sudden you're playing with these international stars, you're playing with Drogba, Makelele, that's a crazy thing to think of, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And like, me, mate, I love West Ham and, looking back now, it was insane. Like the way Premier League club, you can't fathom it. Like you had, like Monday to Wednesday, there were lads coming in selling you like jackets and dodgy briefcases. And I mean, one day I remember the butcher coming into the training ground. The media were allowed in, just strolling around the place. Like you had free bobble hats for the whole squad. So if you didn't get in early and it was cold, you couldn't have a little hat to wear. It was just so like basic, but in a good way, and the camaraderie. And that was the reason I signed as a kid, because I remember going and playing for the under-13s and we finished our game. And then as we was leaving the changing room, there was like you said, Bishop, Morley, Moncur, like walking into the changing room to use our changing room. And then you'd have a chat with them. And we was watching them the day before in the Premier League. So it felt like a really tight unit, and then you sort of ended up, you fall in love with the way the club is, and it was just a special time. And then you realise that creating great players consistently over them years, you just think it would always happen, and then it stopped, and some great people at the club that time, but it was a great time.
Well, most West Ham fans would agree. When you came through, you felt like sort of nothing we'd ever really sort of seen for a long time. And even at the time in the game, that you just sort of, I think, what was lovely? When we played at Soccer Aid, I remember standing at the back with John Bishop and watching you when you came on. And there was incredible guys, Andy Cole's there, Emil Heskey, Gareth Bale, they're brilliant, amazing players. But when you came on and played, you felt like you were still like playing in the street with your mates. Like you were doing these little tricks and you were going past people. And I remember and I think it was someone else was standing there, maybe it was Wes Brown, and we were all just like, he still plays with such enjoyment. Do you know what I mean? Not that the others didn't. It just felt they was just saying more like, I guess, just more natural about the whole way you were just sort of almost like a street footballer.
Yeah, well, that's what I was, mate. And, my dad wasn't a big football fan, so I didn't actually play for a team until I was nearly 11. Yeah, any team, Sunday league or anything, which is unheard of nowadays. You know, my little boy's been playing since he was 6. So I was a street footballer. I am a street footballer, you know, and as you go up, and I was lucky enough to win trophies and play it for England at the highest level. And I wrestle with this part of me that's like, you know, that loves the beauty of the game and loves, you know, like a street footballer, like it recognises that it's entertainment, you know, and then also there's a part of me that just, there's like a devil in me that wants to win at all costs. So I managed to win things and win trophies and fit within a team, but there was always a part of me, I'm a street footballer at heart, you know, and I'll always will be. And I still play now. I play for Sunday League, and I'm waiting for, you know, you got the number 9 shirt waiting for you, big man. We've got Terry up front. I'll give him a little shout out here. He's the same dimensions as you, and it's going to be. We've got a long throw as well. We cause chaos. Anyone think Joe Cole's Sunday League team will start be playing out the back? We are long ball.
Oh, mate, I'm all up for that. I tell you what, now the knees hit. I will need to get ready for Soccer Aid Mark II for me. 2021, I'm coming back with the Joe Cole way. I remember seriously one of the highlights of my career, and I've done a lot of good stuff in my career, when you passed me the ball one day in training, and it was like, genuinely even then, I remember just Paddy McGuinness behind me, and I was just it's a mad story. Ball comes to me, Joe Cole's passed it, and I'm like, I just got a ball from Joe Cole, and then Paddy just smashed through the back at me, put me up in the air. But it's I'd love to come and play for the old Vets team. So Joe, here we are, podcast time. Do you want to tell people what we've got? Some great stuff in store for them. What are the listeners going to get here, Joe?
Mate, listen, I'm excited about this. I'm a big fan of podcasts. I love listening to all the football ones. We're going to get some great guests. We're going to do it every Thursday, remotely at first. You know, so this is what it is. But mate, we're in the studios, get some football people in, have a chat about football. You know, try and give the fans a little insight into how it was, how it is, and just generally have a good time, mate. It's a chat. I mean, you go into these things, don't you? A little bit blind, but we'll have a right go, won't we? We'll have a go.
I like this. It's like a team talk show. I feel empowered now. I feel ready to go. What I'm looking forward to? I love the stories of the game. I like the peek behind the curtain, because as a fan, they're the things sometimes you don't hear about, you don't see. And I'm looking forward to chatting to people and hearing those stories sort of firsthand.
Yeah, and do you know what, Tom? When it's a chat like this, and when you get a footballer on, and it's comfortable, do you know what I mean? And you get to know a little bit more of the person, don't you? So I love this format. I love podcasts, and we're going to have some great guests on. And the one we got today is unbelievable.
Mate, there's no better way to start it than with this guy. Probably for me, the greatest England number 9 of all time. I love this man. I travel around the world watching him wearing that number 9. He's an incredible player, incredible man. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Alan Shearer.
That was a nice introduction. Thanks very much.
Mate, and I mean, I know obviously I'm mates with Joe, I know Joe, but it's still the only thing I get really giddy when I meet footballers. I still like, you know, even in this business. And for me, yeah, you're an absolute guy back in the day, man. Which I was there for all the 96, 98, and happy memories.
They were great times, great competition to play.
I was there, Tom.
Were you there, Joe?
I tell you, for my 14th birthday, my mum and dad got me the 3 group games. I've done the 3 group games, and after what was the last one? It was Holland, weren't it?
Yeah, Holland, yeah.
And I come home, my mum and dad was like, Mum, I want to stay for the quarterfinals. It's like I was having the best time of my life. And she said, no, they booked a holiday to Disney. Like most 14-year-olds would be like buzzing with it. And I was like a proper brat. I don't want to go. I booked this holiday for you, and you want to go and watch England? I was like, it's Euro 96, Mum.
It was the greatest tournament.
I was right behind the goal when Seaman made the pen, and then Gazza went and scored against Scotland at the other end.
Great days.
I was 16, and it was like, I think that tournament was just like, it felt like everything. I mean, you were right front and centre of that, Alan. I mean, we were coming up to International Week, and for me, and probably I'd say you, Joe, as a fan, that nothing's ever bettered that. Not for me, that feeling of '96. I mean, what was it like to be involved in that?
It was just unbelievable. I mean, considering the pressure we were under because of what happened in China and Hong Kong with the infamous dentist chair and all of that, and I hadn't scored for nearly 2 years playing for England, so there was a bit of pressure on, really. But and the best bit of man management ever, really, towards me was from Terry Venables when he said to me before the tournament that whatever happens in China and Hong Kong in the friendly games, that I would be starting that first game in Euro '96, and I just thought, wow, for the manager to have that amount of belief in me, even though I haven't scored for England for such a long time, that I had to sort of repay him. And thankfully, I scored in the first game against Switzerland, and then against Scotland, and then against Holland, and eventually finished the tournament top scorer. So, but a lot of that was down to the great management skills of Terry Venables.
When did you first get into the squad there, Joe? Because you were young. I mean, I'm obviously a massive West Ham fan. So, Alan, we were talking about Joe Cole as the saviour. He was like the second coming for us. Do you know what I mean? Joe was a West Ham fan. All you knew about was this kid was coming through the youth ranks, and we were just like, "Oh, wait till he comes." But when did you first come? When were you first in with that England team? What age were you?
I think it was either my first squad or my first time I trained with them. So at Bisham Abbey, and Al was in there. And I walked in. I've got on the coach for the first day, and there's Al sitting there. There's Tony Adams, like these lads that were my heroes. Tony Adams, like the United boys, your Beckhams, and Incy was there. Like from these boys were on a pedestal for me. So we went training, and everyone was great with me, young kid. And then after training, before the days of iPhones and computer games and everything, it's literally in the room. So someone said to me, "Do you play golf?" So I just looked at it on telly. Thought that looks pretty simple. I went, yeah, I'll play a bit of golf. I'd never even seen a golf club. Like a lad from Kentish Town, there's no grass anywhere. So I thought I'll go. And then they've all turned up, and they've all got all the gear on and all that. Al's turned up with all these clubber and their own clubs and all that. I thought, they look a bit serious, these boys. So anyway, we got out to the first tee. I've never held a golf club before, but I've blagged it so far. I just didn't want to sit in my room by myself. So I've gone out to the first tee, and they're all behind me, and I've just gone whoosh, air shot. I've done about 4 air shots, and I shanked it into the trees. And they turned around, and they're all just pissing themselves, laughing at me. And by the second hole, I just ended up caddying for them. But it was a great experience. I'm still no better at golf now. But I just
Do you remember that?
Imagine the pressure as a 17-year-old. You've got Shearer, Adams, Ince looking at you. And I've never even held a golf club before.
Do you remember that, Alan? Do you remember?
I remember. I do. I remember standing behind that first tee when you were there and having your air shot. We were all laughing our heads off. But don't worry, we've all been there. We've all done that. Don't worry on that first tee. I think that was around 1999, something like that. What year was your debut, Joe, for England?
That was 99.
Yeah, was it? Because I retired in 2000.
Do you know what? I think it was, mate. I think it was the Germany game when we lost. So I was in the squad. I wasn't training. I'd been chosen in the squad, but I didn't get on the bench until the Finland game. But I remember because Keegan retired that game, didn't he? So I was like, I've come down from the stands, and Keegan's come out the change room at the old Wembley, and he's going, "I'm quitting," and I'm like, "What's going on here?" And he was being followed around by all the media guys because he was going to go, and I think he quit on the telly straight away. And I was like, "What's happening here?" Like, and then you had, I vaguely remember Tony Adams trying to talk him out of it, and just it was like, what an introduction to international football, shanking on the golf tee first, and then that big Germany game where we got beat, and I thought, wow, is it going to be always as dramatic as this? But mate, it was a proper, it was, as a youngster, it was an amazing experience.
Because what happened was with the youngsters coming into I think it was Terry Venables that actually started it in his time.
Yeah,
is that anyone that was shown bits of promise, and as you said, the word was out already about a young, great Joe Cole who was showing great potential, who was going to be this fantastic player. What Terry did back in the day was bring those kids in, like Rio Ferdinand, and Glenn Hoddle did exactly the same, and bring them into the England squad and just let them get a taste of what it's like. So when you eventually do get in the squad, it's not this this huge thing is when you're walking around, you're seeing all these players who all you've ever seen on TV, and it's too nerve-wracking for the young players. So they got the young players in and let them have a little bit of a train and a walk around and get a feel of it. So it wasn't as huge when they did eventually get into the squad. I mean, I was exactly the same as you, Joe, when I made my debut in 1992. I mean, I was a lot young. I was a lot older, I should say. I was 21. So walking into an England dressing room or an England squad, and when I was at Southampton at the time, and you walk in and I'm seeing the likes of Gary Lineker, who all he'd ever seen was is finishing top scorer in World Cups and played and been hugely successful wherever. So I was exactly the same as anyone coming into the England squad for the very first time. And you can understand why it might take some players a little bit of time to adapt and to adjust and get used to that feeling.
So moving on to like the England team now, lads, and where we're. I mean, it's a weird thing as well when you talk about how England squads work over time, and you'll have like it seems as an England fan, you have an embarrassment of riches in certain areas. I remember when you were playing, Joe, you had those sort of like sort of centre midfield. We had a real glutton of. I remember chatting to Wes Brown about centre backs when he was coming through, and he was like, there was 4 or 5 amazing guys. Any other time, Wes would be, he's winning everything for United, but he's got JT, he's got Rio, he's got Ledley in front of him. Yeah. And now it feels like we're at a time we've got an incredible amount of right backs, but also we've sort of now got this. All of a sudden we've got Mount, Grealish, Foden all coming through. James Maddison at Leicester. So sort of. I mean, Joe, I guess these guys feel like you as players, right? They're sort of that similar sort of role to you when you came in as a young England player. Where do you both see? Who do you see out of those 4? Say we'll pick those 4. Who do you see as the guy where you're like, I like him. He's what?
See them boys, like the way the modern footballer, like it changes. The game evolves. The game's definitely changed. If you only have to watch games from the early 90s to the late 90s to the 2000s, and now we've got a glut of players like Mount, Foden, Maddison, Grealish, sort of technical. Barkley, yeah, like great, like people. You just forget him. Loftus-Cheek, these sort of guys who play in the pocket, and because that's how they've been brought up on this academy system. Because we went more continental, and I think it will help us in the long run. I mean, my thing with all of them is. At least 3 of them have to be on the pitch out of the 4 or the 6 I mentioned at all times, because so many times, and I will say to you, we fell down, certainly in my era, under Sven and McLaren and Capello, like where we didn't have enough nous to control the ball, take the ball in tight areas and play through the lines, and we was a bit one-dimensional, and we sort of, so I think having them 4 on the imagine you pick Grealish up, go back in time, put him on the pitch in that semi-final against Croatia when we was under the cosh a little bit. We were tired. The front men weren't really getting hold of it, and Croatia midfield started to dominate. You'd put Grealish in that midfield there for that 30, 40 minutes, and he'd have drove us up the pitch, won some free kicks, being able to receive the ball, and we'd have got a bit more possession. I think just the problem's always been keeping possession on them big moments, and I think we've now got players technically capable of doing it. I don't know what Al thinks. I mean, but I think that's where we're going now.
Yeah, the problem, I say it's not a problem. I mean, it's a good thing to have. You've got so many options. You've got so many technically gifted players, and the ones that you have mentioned. The issue that they've got is that Harry Kane is definitely going to play. The form that Rashford's in, the form that Sterling's in, then those guys are also going to play. So how do you fit all of these players in? I mean, I think I've heard Gareth say Jack Grealish. I mean, he's having an unbelievable season. I sit there in the Match of the Day office on Saturdays and Sundays and watch him, and he's having a whale of a time. He's enjoying his football so much. But I think Gareth has actually said who he's up against in trying to get into the team. I mean, you've got Henderson, who had. I mean, look at the season that Jordan Henderson had for Liverpool last season. Yeah. You West Ham boys with Declan Rice in that midfield as well. So where do you fit these guys in? And that's the issue that Gareth has got, and he's got to find a way and got to find a balance that you can get at least 1, maybe 2 of the technically gifted players in there, because you're right. I mean, They're exceptional players, and but for Gareth, it's a great problem to have.
Because I mean, for me as well, the amount that Foden now, like, I mean, I watched the West Ham game when we played them, and he came on, he changed the game for me. He looks like now that Pep's gone, right, this is your time, and I guess there's a thing, isn't there, where I look at Declan. If I'm honest with you, I had sleepless nights all over the summer because is Declan going to go to Chelsea, and you know. I remember when Joe came through. I remember when Rio came through, and I will say Declan he's the real deal, man. I mean, but if you see him week in, week out, and I think his game's actually got better this season. I think going forward, and actually like with Suet next to him, distributing the ball. But if you sort of look at that and you think guys like, I suppose, Declan, Maddison, Grealish, they're going to play every week for those teams. Foden, almost before you're going, well, he's at Man City. He might not play all the time because he's got this guy. And now you look at him, you think, well, actually, now he's playing for City, and he looks like he might almost be. For me, he could come out of this season being their best player. But do you think for you, could Foden be that guy, or are you leaning more towards Grealish? And then for me as well, Mount feels like I think whenever I watch Chelsea now, I'm like, Mount seems to. Every time Mason seems to get a challenge, he raises up to that game. Like you sign two players, like essentially, who can sit in his position this season. And some people's head's going to go down. Feels like Mason's just gone, well, no, I'm better than these guys. I can up the game up, and I can change my game up a bit.
But certainly feels with Phil Foden that with David Silva leaving Manchester City, that, I mean, Pep has been saying it for a while, that this young boy has got some talent, and rightly so. And he's certainly having more game time this year, which is only going to benefit England. And I mean, there's no doubt the ability that all of these players have got. The problem is that fitting them and getting them into the England team in a system that suits the team.
Coral are actually running odds on who's going to start England's first game in the Euros next summer versus Sweden. We've got Phil Foden is coming in at 6-4 on. Mason Mount at 6-5 on. James Maddison is 11-10. Jack Grealish is 6-4. I mean, Joe, what are you making of that, mate?
Mate, I think Jack Grealish is a great bet. The way he's performing, if he carries on the way he's going, he could be PFA Player of the Year. And how hard would it be then to not start him? He's scoring goals, he's making goals, he's just a monster when he picks the ball up and drives with it. Mate, Jack Grealish, that is a great price.
Because I think the most difficult bit in a way is even if you push it back to that back line as well. I think Reece James coming through, you must have seen him at Chelsea when he was coming through. I think he looks great, Reece, right? Obviously, Trent, Kyle Walker. He's an embarrassment of riches. The young lad now at Brighton, he looks incredible. He's,
Lamptey, Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah, Wan-Bissaka. So all of a sudden, you're like, wow, this is. For me, at times, you think, when you look at that, I mean, Kyle Walker's at times, it's like he's been pushed into that centre-back position a little bit for City at times, the way they're playing a little, pace can get you out of problems. But who would you look at that centre-back pairing? Who would be, for the both of you, who would you be looking at there?
For the centre-back, I think that's the toughest one for me, big man. I like Kyle Walker on the right side of a free for England. I think, Trent has to play, but then Reece James, I think, has the potential to be better than both of them. Potential. But I've seen him close up, and defence, like in terms of the full package, defensively and attacking, he's incredible. But Trent's incredible. Kyle Walker's incredible player. Trippier, we not even mentioned him, mate. I'll have to leave this one to Al. Yeah. He's played against it. I mean, Al, this is probably a better question for Al. If you're playing against England's back three, who would you think would give you the most troubles as a centre half? And don't say none of them. I know you probably will.
No, I think there lies the issue in those positions. I mean, Gomez is another one that we haven't mentioned in that position. Hopefully, his injury's not too bad. But we've been through the midfield guys, and spoiled for choice. There's some unbelievable players in there going forward. When you look at who we've got Kane and Rashford and Sancho, Sterling, Calvert-Lewin, Tammy Abraham, guys who aren't in the squad. You've got, Danny Ings, Greenwood, who's going to be an unbelievable player. Callum Wilson, if he continues scoring goals. So in
Marco
terms
Antonio.
of What a season he's having. Yeah, I mean, up until his injury.
Looks great.
I knew he'd throw a West Ham player in. I knew he would.
So you've got all those players. We mentioned the right backs. I think the issue for me is in that centre half position. I mean, it looks as if we might go with 3 centre halves, and as I've already mentioned, in Gomez, hopefully his injury is not too bad. Harry Maguire, we've got in there, and also the issue in goal as well, which is what we've got. So many very, very good players in attacking positions, but right in that middle of the spine defensively and in the goalkeeping position, I think there lies the 1 or 2 issues that England have got and Gareth's got.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky. Joe, were you at, was Declan at Chelsea when you were at Chelsea? Was he a young kid there?
No, he's actually, I trained with him when I was in America on the off season. I went back to West Ham and they let me train with the youth team. Yeah. And straight away, like when you see a young player with class, you know, not just on the pitch, he had that something off the pitch where he was asking me, I walked in there, he was asking me questions. You know, he was engaging, and when he trained at 100%. You know, so I actually sort of played against him. So I would have been 36 right my last season. I was getting fit for the last season, so I went in and trained with him, and he was probably one of the reasons I thought I could have got knocked this on the head. They've got this 17-year-old kid at West Ham who was just trampling all over me. I couldn't get on the ball. He was brilliant. So yeah, I mean, he's a great lad. I mean, he's one. I think whether he plays in the back three or plays in the midfield, I think he's got the personality and the quality to play for England. I think, and the personality is just as important as the quality. Alan would tell you, because so many good players of my genre, my era, who were brilliant at club level, and they went in and put an England shirt on, and just something, it was just too big for him. Do you know what I mean? And that will not affect Dec. He'll rise to the occasion every time he pulls that shirt on.
That'd be my next question for you both, in a sense. Like, how much do you think, like, talking about sort of someone like Declan, where if you're turning up to an England squad and, you know, Declan, you know, West Ham are playing okay, but, you know, there's going to be a ceiling that you're going to hit at West Ham. How much of that, where, you know, he's there with, you know, Rashford or whoever else, the Chelsea boys, the United boys, the Liverpool boys, City boys are all playing in the Champions League, and they're going to Juventus or they're going to Real Madrid to play. For both of you guys, when you're playing for England, Alan, when you're at Southampton, Joe, when you're at West Ham, when you're going to play for England and the people around you are talking about these massive games that they're playing in, does that have an impact on you as a player? Do you then go, you know what, I love West Ham or I love Southampton, but I want a bit of that? Does that, and do you think then that hand in hand almost goes with being able to meet the expectations of playing for England?
Well, I think that all depends on how and what West Ham do. If West Ham improve and start and climb the table, and then spend money on bringing quality players in, and then Declan sees himself as having a chance as being successful there, then obviously that might keep him there. But so long as he's playing the way he is, as long as he's going into England squads and watching all these players, there's going to be interest in him, because he's a fantastic player, and eventually that will come down to him personally. He'll make that decision, because he'll know that the big clubs are chasing him, and they probably will be prepared to pay a huge fee to get him out of there. So he'll control that in terms of, and West Ham, how successful or not they're going to be.
Joe, for you, what are you thinking?
Mate, I know you won't like to hear it, but yeah, I think that's a big thing. I remember going away with England, and you know, at West Ham we had good seasons, we had not so good seasons. I finished 5th and 7th, and then 16th, and we ended up getting relegated. You know, so it was sort of taken out of my hands a little bit. The club needed the money to sell me, but you do look over there and you get a little bit of green with envy, because you want to be playing in the Champions League. You want to be competing for trophies. And it just depends. I was right. It depends on what West Ham do, how they kick on this year, what the plan is. And, you know, but he will be, I know he's a boy that is ambitious. So West Ham have to match. He's that important for the club now. West Ham have to match his ambitions if they're going to keep hold of him, because he's easily the best player down there, isn't he, big man? I mean, I watch him every game, and he's been brilliant.
Mate, he is. I mean, I always say when it comes to it, Joe, and I think I remember when we got relegated, and that was an incredible team we had that season. You sort of an embarrassment of riches really to go down. But as you go older, you sort of like, you enjoy the people when they're there. I remember being devastated when you left and Rio, whatever. But you sort of, when Payet went, you're like, you just enjoy those moments in the sun. You know that they might come around every now and again. You sort of, there's a few, and with Declan, you like anything, you realise that ambition is a massive thing. And if the club aren't going to match that and the people around him aren't going to match that, you bear him no malice to go on, mate, go and, because I genuinely believe with him, he can go to the very, very top of the game. I don't want to start crying, lads, so let's just move
Positivity,
on.
big man. Positivity. It could be with West Ham. You just dropped the tone there. You've gone very sombre. Come on, West Ham.
I was literally in my head, all I had playing was, hello, darkness, my old friend.
You're watching All to Play For, brought to you by Joe and Coral.
Right. Who's winning the league this season? Maybe the Toffees can continue their great form. Will the Blues benefit from German firepower? Will it be about a Belgian who can put a ball on a sixpence? How are the champions going to cope without him? Whatever happens, it's going to be exciting.
No one knows football better than a Coral football better.
Now, do you know the nation's biggest football fan? Coral are on the lookout for the most dedicated fan going. Each month, Alan's going to be picking a winner who's going to get £1,000 to spend on football experiences of their choice. And at the end of the season, they're looking for the ultimate fan who's going to get £10,000 to fuel their passion for the game. Alan, what are you going to be looking for? What do you look for in a great fan?
Well, it's someone who's passionate about their football club. It's someone who hasn't missed a game, whether that be at home or whether they prefer to travel away. Who sticks with their football club, whether they win or lose, can be how long they've been a fan for. So yeah, you put all of those things into the mix. But I think, the one thing that has come out of this year in lockdown is how important fans are, because it's certainly not the game that we're used to without having fans in the stadium. And if people didn't appreciate fans, then they certainly should do now.
Yeah, no, well said. I think, bang on, I think that's a massive, what we've gone through now without the fans in the stadium, you realise they ain't customers. They ain't, they're not, it's such a strange business that they are such an integral part of the show, because it's show business, not show business, but it's entertainment, isn't it, football? And people want to go down, they want to be entertained and they want to have a great time with their friends. So I think coming out of this, what we've gone through, I think the fans need to be looked after better by the clubs in terms of pricing, in terms of, communication and what's going on, because it is their club, the fans. And it's right. The people that go home and away, with their team, and they go and they support them through thick and thin. I mean, and, without fans, it's a lesser game. And the clubs now, I think, are recognising that. And hopefully that can be a positive coming out of this.
Yeah, I hope so. Right now, we need to talk about one man. He's on I can't do this conversation with Alan Shearer without talking about Harry Kane. You're obviously a big fan. I mean, when I first saw Harry play and come through, he felt. I mean, you were literally. I don't want to blow too much smoke up your ass, Alan, but you felt for me like coming through. You literally scored every kind of goal. Even for when you played Blackburn or playing for Newcastle, watching you were just a goal machine, weren't you? And then Harry feels for me the closest in a way to sort of how you played, I guess, that sort of classical number 9. Obviously a big fan. How highly do you rate him?
Oh, I'm a huge fan of his, and he hasn't had it all his own way either. He's had to go out and learn and do it the hard way. It hasn't all been handed on a plate for him, so he's had to work at it, and you can tell he's worked at it because he's deadly. If you want him, you're seeing more of it now, perhaps this season, but coming deeper, bringing other people into the game, the number of assists that he's got. It hasn't affected his goal scoring because he's still putting the ball in in the back of the net. So yeah, I'm without doubt, I'm a huge fan of his.
Al, you scored 260 good Premier League goals, the record. I mean, do you know what I don't know if people will remember, but you had 2 massive injuries, didn't you? You know, was it the 1 or 2 with the knee?
I had 3, Joe.
3, yeah. See people, and you think the amount of goals you scored, and with them injuries as well. And I almost remember, you know, like all great players, you changed the game as you got older. And I remember you, when you're at Southampton coming through, like, and Blackburn, on the shoulders, like your body shape was different. You was running in behind, scoring. You scored all types of goals, and then you had your injury, your layoffs, and then you developed and you become like even more of a target man and playing within the. So do you see that with Harry? Like, I think he's got that what great players have got. You know, even though he's had a few injuries, Harry, nothing too major, but he's adjusted his game slightly. There's less mobility, but you're right, he's even more deadly. And I think the great players, the Ryan Giggses, the ones with longevity, Al, you know, and Harry Kane are put in that bracket. They can change their game. But I had a big knee injury at 29, and I wasn't able to get to the heights that I was before. I couldn't adjust my game as much. It continued off. But I mean, I suppose what I'm trying to say is, do you see a difference in Harry Kane from maybe even 2 years ago? Is it like a maturity to his game?
Yeah, I think he's always had it. He's always had this game where he could play as a number 10. But we're perhaps recognising it more now because of who he's playing with. I mean, Jose has gone in there, and I heard it be said that Harry would struggle to score goals in the Tottenham team with the way Jose plays. I mean, he looks to be better than ever, and the system that they're playing gives him a freedom to do and go anywhere. Basically, if he wants to be on the left or the right, he can do that. Come deep, you've seen him do that, and turning and pinging those balls in behind. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I lost a yard of pace as well. I had the 3 serious injuries. I had a cruciate injury when I was 21, 22. That kept me out for 7 months. I broke my ankle, displaced my ankle joint when I was 26, 27, when just a year after I'd signed for Newcastle, and then I did my tendon in my left knee that kept me out for another 6 or 7 months. And the first injury wasn't a problem. I never lost any pace and still was reasonably quick. Second injury wasn't too bad at all, but after the third one, I knew I'd lost a half a yard or a yard of pace and had to adjust my game and change my game slightly. But the good thing about being a centre forward is that goals can mask poor performances. I mean, you can have an absolute shocking game for 89 or 90 minutes and score the winning goal in the last minute and be named man of the match. And although my goal scoring record wasn't as good as it was in the early part of my 20s, I was still getting a few goals, which helped me stay at that particular level. So, and I think Harry's got the mobility, he's got the nous, and without doubt, he's got the ability to still do that for a number of years. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, the big question is, Alan, I'm sure you're getting asked this all the time, is that so? You've had that record for a long. I mean, that's an incredible feat in itself to have had that record for as long as you've had it. You know, I mean, that's just testament to what an incredible player you were. And Harry Kane is 2-1 with Coral to break that incredible record that you've got. And do you fancy him? Obviously, to take that mantle.
Yeah, I do. I think he's got a great opportunity to do that now. What is he? 27. So yeah, what is he? 100? I think he's 110 behind. Yeah, maybe a little bit, maybe a bit less. So yeah, he's got a brilliant opportunity if he stays free from serious injury over the next few years. Then he'll have a brilliant opportunity to do that. Do I want him to do it? What do you think?
There must be a part of you.
Be honest.
Alan, there must be a part of you. When it comes to the transfer window, you're like, go on, mate, just sign for Real Madrid.
There's not a part of him. No strikers for anyone to beat their goal records.
I've had it for a while, so it's gonna go one day. So if it's gonna go, then it'll go to someone who's got unbelievable ability and is a nice lad, and Harry is that definitely. So he's got a great opportunity here.
He definitely is. He definitely is.
It's a mad thing to think how long that stood. And I mean, I guess that's if I'm honest with you, I thought Harry would. I had a feeling. I thought he, up until Mourinho, really. I always felt that sort of like the Italian game, the Spanish game, whether he'd make that move, could Tottenham sort of like not winning anything, mate, you know, and whether that was going to be a sort of thing of. And I mean, they've come out this season, Tottenham. You know, and as a West Ham fan, it hurts me to say it. they look pretty far on. Do you know what I mean? Him, Son, Bale's sort of coming to fruition. They've got a couple of other players there, and yeah. I mean, I'm fingers crossed, Alan. I'd like you to be the. I like you to always have that record because it makes me feel young.
Well, I don't feel young. Put it that way.
You know what makes me feel old is I had Joe Cole's number, like name and number on the back of my shirt, and he's younger than I am. Like I'm like Declan Rice is half my age, and I idolise him.
Talking about feeling young or feeling old, Eddie Nketiah has just broken my under 21 goal scoring record. That is, I don't know, stood for probably 30 years maybe. So I texted him a couple of weeks ago, just after he'd broken it, to say congratulations and well done and good luck in the future. And I got a nice message back of him. And then I saw in the newspapers the next morning, he said someone had asked him about Alan Shearer and what it would felt like to break his record, and he'd said, I'd seen a few old video clips of Alan Shearer, so that did make me feel old.
You're saying that I had the first one the other day, big man. I did something for charity. I went to like a youth centre, and I was talking to all these young kids, about 8, 9, boys and girls, and this one little girl come up to me and said to me, are you Joe Cole? I said, yeah. She said, you was my nan's favourite player. I was like, oh my goodness, how old am I? Even I'm getting old now. Do you know what I mean? Nan's favourite player, not even the housewife's favourite. The nan's.
I mean, I could talk forever to you, Alan. Honestly, thank you so much for kicking off this podcast with absolute class and style. You know, you're a gentleman of the game, and let me say, you know, I'm hoping Harry goes abroad because I'd love that record to stay forever. Thank you so much for joining us, mate.
Cheers, Joe. Thanks very much. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Cheers, Al. Thanks for coming, mate. Brilliant.
What a guy, Joe. What a guy Alan Shearer is, and what a first show. That felt that felt good for me. That felt good.
Big man, like what a guy, and like you said, you could have gone on for hours talking to him. You know, he was one of my heroes. You know, he's such a great guy. I wanted to ask him about management. Would he consider going back into that? You could have gone on forever with that. But no, good debut, big man. The partnership's getting there. The link up's getting there. Davis and Cole, Shearer and Sheringham.
Mate, it felt good. It felt good just to be in that sort of like the birth of something new, fresh. We'll be back next Thursday with myself, Joe Cole, and another great guest. You've been listening to All to Play For, a brand new podcast brought to you by Joe and Coral. See you later.
You've been watching All to Play For, brought to you by Joe and Coral.